He looked me dead in the eyes over dinner and said, "I guess you only loved me because of my $22,000 year-end bonus." I nearly choked on my wine, because he didn't know I had $2.2 million sitting quietly in my savings. You might not believe how fast someone's true colors can show, but hear me out. If this story hits close to home, feel free to share it or show some love to the channel. You never know who might need to hear it. I'm Kayla Monroe, 34, living in Seattle, Washington. I've worked in private real estate deals for over a decade. I've made smart choices, saved well, and built a life I'm proud of. But you wouldn't know that just by looking at me. I dress simple, I don't flash luxury, and I never talk about money unless I have to. I've always believed love should be about connection, not status. 3 years ago, I met Bradley Carter, Brad. He was funny, down to earth, and made me laugh when I was going through a rough patch. He worked in logistics, lived modestly, and didn't try to impress anyone. I thought I'd found someone who valued me for who I really was. At first, things were good. We had fun, stayed in a lot, talked about life, and supported each other's goals. But over time, I noticed little jabs. He'd say things like, "Must be nice not worrying about bills," or "Real estate people just make money by flipping houses, easy life." I'd laugh it off. I thought he was just joking. The truth is, I never told Brad how much I earned. I didn't think it mattered. I paid for a few vacations, covered dinners, got him nice birthday gifts. I liked doing those things. It felt natural, like I was sharing what I had with someone I cared about. But everything shifted the night of his work dinner. He had just gotten his $22,000 bonus and was acting like he'd won the lottery. He was confident, a little louder than usual, and even made a few smug comments in front of his coworker. I smiled and played along. I didn't want to embarrass him. Later that night, just the two of us sitting across from each other, he looked serious and said that awful line. "I guess you only loved me because of my $22,000 year-end bonus." I froze. I felt a sting in my chest that I didn't expect. This man, the one I supported, cared for, trusted, really thought I was with him for money? For his money. He had no idea who he was talking to. And in that moment, I realized maybe he never really knew me at all. 3 years ago, I was at one of the lowest points in my life. My family had turned on me over a real estate deal gone wrong. They blamed me, even though I had tried to help. I was emotionally drained, trying to keep my head above water, when I met Brad. He was sitting alone at a friend's housewarming party, eating chips straight from the bowl and making sarcastic comments about the wine being too fancy. I laughed, probably harder than I should have. But something about his humor, his calm attitude, felt like exactly what I needed. He didn't care about appearances, didn't ask me a million questions about my work. He just talked to me like I was a person, not a walking bank account or a business deal. I fell hard. He made me feel safe. He made me believe that maybe, after everything I'd been through, I could have something normal, something honest. Looking back now, the warning signs were there. Little comments he made like, "You rich girls always think yoga counts as a career," or "Must be nice to work from a laptop while drinking overpriced coffee." I thought he was just teasing. I'd laugh and move the conversation along. I didn't want to fight. I didn't want to admit those words stung. I told myself it was better to keep my financial world private. I didn't show him my spreadsheets, my bank statements, or my real portfolio. I thought I was doing the right thing, keeping it real, keeping it simple. I didn't want him to think money defined us. So I paid for things quietly. The trips to Oregon and Hawaii? I booked them. His birthday dinners and the new smartwatch he wanted? I bought them. I never made a show of it. I did it out of love. I thought he saw that. But now I'm starting to question everything. Did he ever respect me? Or did he just enjoy the benefits while quietly resenting me the whole time? He acted like my success was some kind of trick, like I had something to prove. But I never wanted to prove anything. I just wanted to be loved the way I loved him. And now, sitting here thinking about the last 3 years, I'm starting to realize I gave so much of myself to someone who never saw my worth, only what he assumed I was hiding. After that awful dinner, something shifted in Brad, and not in a good way. Suddenly, he started acting like his $22,000 bonus made him the king of the world. He walked taller, talked louder, and threw the word bonus into every conversation like it was some kind of magic spell. He bought a new leather jacket, upgraded his phone, and even started looking at luxury watches online like he'd just signed $1 million contract. At first, I stayed quiet. I figured maybe he was just excited. Everyone deserves to feel proud of their achievements. But then the little comments started. "You've always dated guys with money, right?" he asked one night while we were watching a movie. I looked over, confused. "What are you talking about?" He shrugged, eyes still on the screen. "Just saying, guys like that probably treated you to the good life. I guess I'm your stability now." I didn't know how to respond. It wasn't just a random comment. It was a seed of something uglier. Over the next few days, he kept watering it. One morning I mentioned I had to meet a client across town. He raised an eyebrow and said, Another rich dude with a real estate problem? I told him it was a young couple buying their first home. He just smirked. It didn't stop there. He started making little digs at my spending. Do you really need another pair of shoes? Or, must be nice to just throw money at problems. He questioned why I worked late, why I had so many meetings, why I wasn't more present. I finally sat him down and said, "What's going on with you, Brad? You're not acting like yourself." He leaned back and said, "I finally bring something to the table now, huh? I mean, for once I'm not just your charity case." His voice was flat, almost bitter. "You don't have to pretend anymore." That hurt more than I can explain. I had never once treated him like a case, or looked down on him. I chose him because he made me feel grounded. But now it was like he couldn't accept love without a price tag attached. I talked to Dana, one of my closest friends, about everything. She listened quietly, then said, "Kayla, I think he's projecting. You've been good to him, maybe too good. And now that he has a little success, he doesn't know how to handle it without trying to flip the power dynamic." That hit me hard. Brad wasn't celebrating his win. He was using it as a weapon, and every jab, every jealous remark, was starting to chip away at the love I had left. I used to see him as my safe place. Now, all I saw was someone standing in front of me with a mirror, trying to reflect his own insecurities onto me. One evening, I came home late after a client meeting and found Brad sitting at the kitchen table, my laptop open in front of him. The screen showed one of my investment statements, a quarterly summary I'd accidentally left open while sending files to my accountant earlier that. He didn't look up. He just sat there, staring at the numbers. Then he said flatly, "So this is the real you." I froze. My heart dropped. "I wasn't snooping," he added quickly, though we both knew he was lying. "It just popped up and I clicked it. That's fair, right? Since we've been living together like a couple, but clearly not being honest like one." I opened my mouth, but before I could explain, he slammed the laptop shut and tossed a printed copy of the statement on the table. He must have downloaded it. My balance stared back at me. $2.2 million in assets, spread across properties, savings, and investment. "You think you're better than me?" he snapped. "All this time you've been pretending to need me. What was that part of your act? Humble rich girl trying to feel normal." I was stunned. "Brad, it was never about pretending. I didn't hide anything to trick you. I just didn't want our relationship to be about money." "Too late," he barked. "It is about money now. It always was, wasn't it? You just didn't want me to feel like I mattered." That cut deep. I had spent 3 years showing him that he mattered, not with money but with time, care, attention. I chose him over flashier guys. I paid for things not to control him, but because I wanted to make our life easier. But none of that seemed to mean anything to him now. He stormed into the bedroom and slammed the door. I sat there in silence, my mind racing. The anger in his eyes wasn't about betrayal. It was about feeling small, exposed, and powerless. Later that night, while he was asleep, I quietly packed a few things, my laptop, some clothes, important documents, and took them to my office. I didn't say anything. I didn't leave a note. But deep down, I knew something had changed. The trust was gone. And I could feel it. The storm was just getting started. It didn't take long for the fallout to spread beyond our home. Within a week of the investment statement incident, I started hearing whispers. Small things at first. A mutual friend I hadn't spoken to in a while texted me, asking if I was okay. Another asked if the rumors about me were true. I had no idea what they were talking about, until Sophie called. Sophie and I had been friends since college. She knew me before the money, before the success, before Brad. She was at a friend's barbecue when she overheard Brad talking. Loudly. "He said you were fake," she told me. Like those were his exact words. "He said you'd been secretly rich the whole time and only pretended to need him so you could feel powerful. He made it sound like you were playing some twisted emotional game." I felt sick. I sat on the edge of my couch, gripping the phone. What else did he say? That you used him. That you only dated average guys to feel better about yourself. Kayla, I didn't even know what to say. People were just standing there, listening. I thanked her for telling me, but I couldn't even finish the conversation. My hands were shaking. I stared at my phone, numb. So this was how he was dealing with it, by trying to destroy my character behind my back. The worst part, he knew exactly what kind of damage rumors like that could do to someone in my industry. Real estate is built on trust. If people think I'm dishonest or manipulative, it could ruin deals, lose clients, and taint my reputation. I didn't yell. I didn't scream. I didn't even confront him. Instead, I started protecting myself. I went through every message, every email, every note he'd ever written me. I printed receipts for every trip I'd paid for, every bill I'd covered, every generous act he was now twisting into something dark. I recorded new conversations, saved screenshots, backed up my devices. Then I hired a lawyer. Not because we were married, we weren't, but because we'd been living together, sharing space, and that complicates things. I needed to make sure my assets were airtight, that he couldn't come near my finances even if things got messy. The lawyer was calm, professional, and efficient. "You're smart to come early," she said. "It's always better to prepare before the storm hits." And I knew it was coming. Brad had already shown me who he was when he found that statement. Now he was showing the world who he wanted me to be, the villain in his version of events. But I wasn't going to let him write the ending. Not this time. I was done staying silent. I was done letting his insecurity define my value. This was the beginning of the end, and I was going to make sure it ended on my terms. For the next 2 weeks, I played it cool. I smiled when Brad walked into the room. I nodded when he talked about his promotion at work and how he finally had some real leverage in life. He was smug more than ever. He'd swagger around the apartment like he owned it, even though my name was the only one on the lease. He had no clue that while he bragged, I was already halfway gone. Every day, I moved a little more of my stuff to my office: clothes, shoes, important documents, personal photos. I didn't make a scene. I didn't change the locks or block him. I just disappeared, one drawer at a time. Then I made a dinner reservation, his favorite restaurant downtown, one we hadn't been to in months. I told him we should celebrate his new promotion. He grinned and said, "Told you I was on the come-up." He dressed like he was going to a red carpet, talking the whole way there about how things were finally turning around. The man was glowing, not with joy but with pure ego. Over dinner, he kept going on about how we'd make a power couple, now that we were financially equal. I smiled, took a sip of wine, and said, "I actually brought something for you." He raised an eyebrow as I reached into my bag and pulled out a folder. I slid it across the table, calm and quiet. "What's this?" he asked, laughing a little. "Just a little clarity," I said. He opened it. Inside were printed copies of my bank statements, investment breakdowns, property documents, and LLC registrations. My full financial portfolio: $2.2 million saved, 5 rental properties, 2 small businesses, and 0 debt. His face fell. "I never needed your $22,000, I said, looking him straight in the eyes. "I chose you. That was your worth to me, not your wallet." He sat there, stunned, mouth slightly open, no words. "I wanted something real," I added. "I thought you did too. But instead of supporting me, you tried to tear me down. You lied, you talked behind my back, and you turned my silence into your story." He didn't say a word. He didn't have to. I paid the bill. I stood up, and I left him there, sitting in his fancy new jacket, holding a folder that told him exactly who I was and what he lost. The night after the dinner, I returned to the apartment one last time. I didn't expect gratitude. I didn't even expect calm. But I didn't expect what happened next either. Brad was already pacing the living room when I walked in. His face was red, jaw clenched, fists tight. The folder I had given him at the restaurant sat open on the coffee table. Bank statements and property records scattered everywhere, like they had personally insulted him. "You planned this," he snapped before I even put down my bag. "You set me up to look like an idiot." I stood quietly by the door, letting him get it out. "You're manipulative," he said, voice rising. "Heartless. Vindictive. You waited until I finally had something going for me just so you could crush me with your little power play." I stayed silent, because nothing I could say would calm him now. His pride had been bruised, and instead of looking inward, he needed someone to blame. And that someone was me. "You lied to me for years," he continued, pointing an accusing finger. "You let me believe we were on the same page. You made me think I mattered. And all this time, you were just watching me struggle. For what? Entertainment. That was it." I dropped my bag and looked him square in the eyes. "It was never about what you earned, Brad," I said, my voice steady. "It was about how you made me feel. In the beginning, you made me feel safe, understood. Like I didn't have to pretend." He scoffed, arms crossed, eyes full of spite. "But then you changed," I went on. "You let your own jealousy poison everything we built. You talked about me behind my back. You called me fake. You made up a version of me that made you feel better about your own insecurities." He opened his mouth to cut me off, but I raised my hand and stopped him. "And now," I said, "I just feel embarrassed for you, because I actually loved you. I chose you, and all you ever saw was a bank balance." I picked up my bag, walked past him, and didn't look back. That night, I moved the rest of my things out. I didn't cry. I didn't hesitate. I had already grieved the relationship while I was still in it. When I got to my apartment, I sat on the floor in silence. I blocked him on everything: phone, social media, even mutual group chats. The only place I left open was email, in case something legal ever came up. And then I exhaled, because for the first time in 3 years, I felt free. Not from Brad's words or actions, but from the version of myself that kept trying to love someone who didn't even like who I was. I wish I could say that after I left, Brad took the hint and moved on. But he didn't. It started small. A text here and there, short, guilt-laced messages like "we should talk" or "I deserve closure too." I ignored them. Then he started showing up. First at my office, standing outside the building like he just happened to be in the area. Then near my apartment, leaning against his car, acting casual, too casual. One night, I checked my garage camera remotely and saw him just standing there, staring up at my window. That was it. I saved the footage and filed a restraining order the next morning. I didn't want to believe it had come to that, but I also didn't feel safe anymore. Word about our breakup spread quickly. I wasn't surprised. What did shock me was how divided people became. Some friends, or people I thought were friends, pulled away. A few messaged me awkwardly, saying things like, "We just didn't know you had that kind of money." It kind of changes how we see things. Others said Brad had told them I'd been playing him all along. They didn't ask for my side of the story. They just assumed he had a point. It stung more than I expected. But Sophie and Dana were different. They stood by me without question. Sophie actually confronted someone at a dinner party for repeating one of Brad's lies. Dana helped me scrub my social media and even updated the office staff on what to do if Brad came around again. "Let him drown in his own story," Dana told me. "You don't owe him or anyone else an explanation." Still, the weight of it all sat heavy on my chest. I wasn't just grieving the relationship. I was grieving the version of Brad I thought I knew. The man who used to make me laugh when I couldn't sleep, who'd hold my hand in traffic, who once whispered, "I'm proud of you," when I closed my first big real estate deal. I sat on the floor of my apartment one night, no music, no distraction, just silence. And I let myself cry. Not because I wanted him back, I didn't, but because it hurt to realize I had loved someone who never really saw me. And somehow, that kind of loss leaves the deepest bruise. It had been 5 months since I walked out of Brad's life, and I hadn't seen or heard from him since the restraining order went through. My days had started to feel normal again, peaceful even. I was focusing on my work, reconnecting with real friends, and slowly rebuilding the parts of myself I'd lost during those years with him. Then, on a rainy Tuesday afternoon, I stopped at a gas station just off the highway. I was in a hoodie and sweatpants, hair tied up, zero makeup. I was just trying to fill up and get home. And that's when I saw him. Brad. He was walking out of the convenience store, fumbling with a bottle of soda and a crumpled receipt. His hair was longer, unkempt. He looked thinner, tired, like someone carrying the weight of too many bad choices. He glanced up, did a double take, and stopped in his tracks when he saw me. I froze for a second. Then I turned back to my car and continued pumping gas. I wasn't afraid of him anymore. Just done. He walked over slowly, standing a few feet from me. "Kayla," he muttered, barely loud enough to hear. I gave him a polite nod but didn't say anything. "You really did it, huh?" he said bitterly. "Left me, shut me out, made me look like a joke." I raised an eyebrow. "Excuse me?" "You humiliated me," he said, his voice low but angry. "You embarrassed me in front of everyone. With that folder, the money, the speech. You made me feel like nothing." I took a breath, then turned to face him. "No," I said clearly. "You humiliated yourself the moment you reduced love to a paycheck. I never made you feel like nothing, Brad. You did that to yourself." His face tightened, but he didn't speak. "I didn't leave because you didn't have money," I added. "I left because you couldn't handle the fact that I did. And instead of growing up, you tried to tear me down." He looked away, jaw clenched. I capped the gas tank, got into my car, and rolled down the window one last time. "I hope you find peace, Brad, but I won't be a part of your chaos anymore." Then I drove away. No anger, no guilt, no regret. As the rain hit the windshield, I felt something I hadn't felt in a long time. Light, free, powerful. Closure didn't come in some grand moment or dramatic ending. It came at a gas station, in a quiet goodbye that didn't need anything more than the truth. And for the first time in a long time, that was enough. Looking back, I still find it hard to believe how fast everything unraveled. One moment I thought I was building a future with someone who saw me, loved me, valued me. And the next, I was watching that illusion crumble under the weight of his ego and jealousy. Brad didn't just question my honesty. He made me feel ashamed of what I had earned. He took the one thing I'd been so careful to protect, my peace, and made it feel like something I had to hide. Not because I was wrong, but because he felt small. And I carried that shame for too long. But healing came slowly. Day by day, I stopped shrinking myself. I stopped apologizing for my success. I reminded myself that I had worked hard for everything I had. Every property, every investment, every dollar. I didn't steal it. I didn't lie for it. And I sure didn't owe anyone an explanation. Months later, I started dating again. Nothing serious at first. But this time, I didn't hide my accomplishment. I didn't pretend to be less so someone else could feel more. I laid everything on the table. My career, my lifestyle, my goals. I learned that the right person wouldn't be intimidated by what I had. They'd respect it. They'd respect me. Among my circle of friends, my story quietly made the round. Not as gossip, but as a quiet example. A lesson. One friend called it a masterclass in walking away with your dignity. Another told me it made her rethink how much she gave in relationships where she wasn't truly seen. I didn't ask for that kind of attention, but I appreciated it, because the truth is, wealth was never the flex. It wasn't the number in my bank account or the properties in my portfolio. It was how I carried myself when things got ugly, how I chose truth over ego, how I walked away when staying would have cost me my self-worth. Brad thought I was after his $22,000, but I walked away from him and left every cent behind. What about you? Do you think Kayla made the right choice by leaving, or should she have given Brad another chance? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I'm curious to hear your take. And if you enjoy stories that hit close to the heart, make sure to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you're always updated when a new one drops.